Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. For background, I work in transformation and change in massive programs and literally work with hundreds of hard-working, nice people. However, occasionally I encounter an EP. This was about 8 years ago, so my second EP on this same transformation. I've been trying to get a meeting with a really important person I will call Mr. Big. Mr. Big was the pivot point for the whole global organization. When I first contacted him, his PA responded as he was on holiday, and we had a few nice emails back and forth because while his engagement was critical to me, the guy was on holiday with his family, and you gotta respect family time. I advised the PA I was quite happy to wait until a few weeks after his holiday, knowing that he would have had thousands of emails and critical things to deal with on his return. Then, out of the blue, he emailed me while he was on his holiday. It was unexpected, and to be truthful, I was embarrassed that he interrupted his family time. In any case, we had a couple of emails over 1 hour, and he passed it to a PA to set up a meeting. I was just in the process of setting up my team and mentoring those who were willing to be mentored, so I invited one of them to attend the meeting. I call him Mr. Awesome. The transformation was over a global enterprise, but based between 2 main cities and about 8 offices. For this meeting, and because it was Mr. Big, I thought it should be in person, so I and Mr. Awesome flew to his city for it. While preparing for the session, one of the other transformation people found out we were meeting Mr. Big and asked to attend. Giving a reasonable rationale, I agreed. So we have the meeting in Mr. Big's corner office. I go through the pleasantries and introductions, with EP interrupting a few times like he's desperate to get his information across. I then steer the conversation to the parts of the transformation that impact Mr. Big and what benefits he can expect to gain. It is, after all, a sales pitch at this point. It's at this point that EP tells me to shut up. Mr. Awesome appears about to remonstrate with the IP about this social and profession gaffe, but I indicate no action, so he sits back in his seat. Of course, Mr. Big notices this, locks eyes with me, and nods. We let EP speak for a bit longer, and then he winds up the session, looking forward to his next meeting. Mr. Awesome and I are last out of the room, and I say I'll be in touch. And this is where it gets interesting. It turned out I already knew Mr. Big for some work 11 years earlier, but I meet so many people. He had been a contractor at the time, and I helped design the financial risk management system that kept that organization from losing their licenses. After the meeting, he sent me an email that was straight to the point. He asked me about the behavior of EP and if I considered it acceptable, likely to drive the benefits of the transformation forward. Given what I'd just seen, I said no. 2 weeks later, EP was gone, and although there were various rumors as to why trying to get people to donate to his charity a big problem in a corporation, since charities are vetted, or watching porn during a meeting on the work-supplied laptop, no comment, no one could be that dumb. I knew that he had been fired for being an a-hole in front of Mr. Big. Mr. Big went on to support the transformation at board level, and it infused every division and dramatically improved the impact of all work towards a better customer experience globally. This is a more up-to-date experience of EP of around 2 years ago. Grace had been a contractor who went permanent in a corporation. She was placed with a client and worked on site 80 of the time. This is where she met EP. He was on the same level as her and senior, but working in a different area. EP introduced himself with conversation filled with sexual innuendo. Writing this as a male, and if it had been me, I'd just punch him in the face, but apparently women have to put up with this just because they breathe. Grace is happily married, and EP is also married, but clearly doesn't believe in marriage vow. In the first day, he tried it on, hit on, with Grace 4 times. And then every time he saw her for about 6 weeks, including trying to take her for drinks, dinner, and share an apartment with her to save money while on assignment. She managed to navigate all of this, because frankly as a woman she was used to idiots' attention, who can't understand no. After 6 weeks, he reminded her that he was going to review her probation in 6 weeks' time, and that she better be nice to him. Yuck, yuck. Clearly he was trying to pressure her, but unfortunately, she contacted me. As I've said before, I know about corporate systems. Par and legal from being a senior person, I advised Grace to use the client whistleblower's system, not her own corporation. I'll explain later. She had never come across this kind of thing before. First, I explained how to mask her IP address and set up a Gmail account. Then what the likely reaction to such a report would be. I described the investigation process and that ultimately she might have to identify herself. So why use the client whistleblower system? Mainly because Grace had said that the EP was bulletproof in their own corporation. He apparently did all his boss's work and was invaluable to keep the division going. By using the client whistleblower system, Grace would bring pressure to bear from a paying client that frankly is focused on a safe working environment that delivers their outcomes. The client investigated the matter, pulling in anyone that may have engaged with EP, both from their staff and the vendor. A further 4 women came forward regarding his creepy behavior, 2 from their own staff and 2 from the vendor. The vendor corporation was asked to remove him from site as he was considered to be a threat. After this, EP tried to work without the client's knowledge remotely, but unfortunately, this came to light because he was a bully to all the on-site staff, and although removed from the site, he continued to apply pressure to people. When they started resigning en masse, his involvement came to light, and the client company hired them direct, reducing the scope of the vendor dramatically while warning them if he continued to be engaged, they would lose their whole contract. Finally, the vendor fired him so that the vendor could keep some of their contract in the hope of rebuilding trust. I took over care of my brother's dog years ago, and he still treats the dog like he owns her. I started taking care of my brother's dog a couple years ago, and he still treats it like his own dog when he's around. I'm 41 and my brother is 50. A few years ago, he moved from an acreage outside of the city to an apartment downtown. He asked me if I could take care of his dog since his apartment is a terrible place for a dog to be, especially moving from a house with a large yard to a small apartment in a high-rise. Anyways, I agree, and I now consider this dog to be my own, since it's been 3 years and my brother has seen it a total of 7-8 times. My brother also doesn't send money for food or anything and rarely even asks about her. Since I have had her, I've noticed that any time my dog has whipped cream, she has uncontrollable diarrhea afterwards and it gets all over my plate. This kind of sucks because she loves whipped cream, but obviously it's not good for her, so she hasn't had it really since she's been with me. So I had my brother and his wife over for dinner last week, and I tell them very explicitly, do not feed her whipped cream. My brother, being the entitled big brother prick he is, says, oh, come on, that's her favorite dessert. I always gave her whipped cream, and I respond with yeah because she lived outside on an acreage with you, and you probably never noticed. She absolutely cannot have whipped cream or she will shit all over my place. Well, dinner goes fine, and my brother and his wife leave, and everything is dandy. An hour later, I walk out of my room and my dog has diarrhea all over our place. On the carpet, on the couch, and the worst one was on me and my family's shoes. Are you freaking kidding me? My brother had obviously secretly fed her whipped cream when I wasn't around, completely disregarding what I had told him. I call my brother furious and tell him what happened, and he denies saying he fed her whipped cream and then proceeds to say, even if I did feed her whipped cream, it's my dog and I know that's her favorite dessert. I've been feeding it to her for years and it didn't make her sick. I literally hung up the phone right then and there. He's such a prick. I feel bad for my dog and my wife, just so entitled of him to do that. I'm still seething, and it's been a week, but I had to vent. My wife is mad too, but not nearly as furious. I think she has a soft spot for my family, but that is beside the point. Update. It's now been a few weeks since this incident. Still no apology or responsibility. What really has gotten me angry is that my brother recently mentioned that they are moving out of their apartment and into a house of some sort. After saying this, he made an offhand comment about how it'll be awesome to get my dog back, as if he just gets to take her back. After 3 years, I've become insanely attached to this dog, and I obviously consider her mine at this point. I think it's completely entitled of my brother to think he can just take her back. He hasn't officially bought anywhere or asked for her back, but he's made comments about taking her back, and it's triggering. Growing up, I've always liked Germany and Japan, especially the cars. My favorites are Porsche and Lexus, and my mom's ex-husband wasn't into cars. He hated just about every piece of clothing I owned. I have mostly Adidas stuff and a few shirts and hoodies with Porsches and Lexuses on them. So one day, when I'm getting ready for my first day of school after the pandemic, Mom's ex-husband, who I'll call Keith, not his actual name, but his actual name is so bad it might as well be Keith, stops me and looks at me dead serious and says, I want you to take off those ragged pieces of shit and throw them in the trash along with any clothes you have in the washer. I looked at him, laughed, and walked out the door. I thought I looked pretty good that day, and it made me really happy seeing my friends really hadn't changed since March. Then when I got home, Keith was stuffing all of the clothes from washer into a trash bag. I asked what he was doing, and he said, "I'm tired of you trying to present as rich. Take this bag out to the trash and don't take anything out of it." I looked at him and I kept repeating how he can't be serious. He said he was dead serious and went into my parents' room. I decided to see how much of my clothes I was going to lose, and to my surprise, it was just some socks, a pair of jeans, and 2 shirts. I was about to take them out when I noticed Keith threw his clothes in there too. He's a stereotypical stepdad and doesn't do anything, so there's no way he would have known my mom washed his clothes with mine. Then I took a moment to check some receipts in my room to see how much I'd be set back if I actually put this bag in the trash, and I figured out it'd be around $40. Not much of an issue there. So this is when the malicious compliance kicks in. I took the bag to the trash can and set it at the end of the driveway for trash day tomorrow. It comes at 6. So imagine Keith's surprise when he gets up at 6 to find that he has no clean work shirts, no clean socks, and no clean socks, and no clean pants. It made him absolutely livid, and he quite literally yanked me out of bed to scream at me. He pinned me to the wall and yelled about how his clothes were missing, and I told him your clothes were in that bag, and had you been paying attention, you wouldn't be in this situation. He just got up and walked away, struggling to find anything to wear. He eventually came back and very calmly asked to borrow a shirt and pants from me, along with socks and a sweatshirt. I then proceeded to hand him each of the clothes he asked, but they were ones I didn't like and didn't wear often. He spent the whole day posting on Facebook and Instagram about how bad he looked, and it was so funny that I couldn't put my phone down. I was out running typical Saturday morning errands with my youngest son and grandson. We stopped to get gas. The pay at the pump option was offline, so everyone was having to go to the window to prepay. Of course, since people had to go to the window, they were making impulse purchases of lottery, drinks, snacks. 12 pumps, so the line was kind of long. As I'm walking to the pump, I heard a car horn and someone yell, "Get out of my way! Screw this!" I heard a few others exclaiming things such as, "What the heck? What are you doing? Look out, look out." I watched in horror as this lady literally drove through the line of people to pull the front of her car almost right up to the gas shack. Elderly lady gets out of her car, waving her cane around, trying to hit people to keep them out of her way. She was yelling, "Get the heck out of my way." I have to buy my lottery tickets now. Go back to your cars, pay over there. Move it out of my way. The cashier inside was yelling over the intercom for her to stop, to get back in her car, move it, and wait in line. Elderly lady yells back, "Screw you and all these idiots!" I come here every Saturday at this exact time to get my lottery. I have to buy them at this exact time, the cashier tells her. "Ma'am, I'm calling the police. You endangered every person in line and myself, and also had your brakes failed. You will not be buying anything from here, ever. What you did, your face, car, and license plate, are all on camera." The cashier called the police, but several people had already called them as well. EMS and police were on their way. I don't care what you think you're doing. What you are going to do is give me rattles off list of lottery, and you're going to do it now? No, ma'am, I am not. Cashier then asks over the intercom if anyone is actually hurt. No one is seriously hurt, but a few were bumped by her car and cane. The police showed up at that time and walked up to the elderly lady. "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to please step away from the window and talk to me. Not until I get my lottery tickets." "Ma'am, you're not getting any lottery tickets today. Please step over here." At this, she picked up her cane and started swinging it around. "Ma'am, put the cane down. If you don't come to talk to us peacefully and stop using your cane as a weapon, we will be forced to taser you." Emma showed up along with another 2 police officers. One of them says to the crowd, "Everyone, please step away and to the ambulance. If you are injured in any way, let us know." The other officer says, "We need all witnesses willing to make a statement to come this way." Another 2 officers show up along with another ambulance. The first 2 officers are still trying to talk to the elderly lady, and she's having none of it. At this point, she started grabbing things nearby, oil, car accessories, etc., and throwing them at the officer. The 2 officers who had just arrived approached her very slowly. "Ma'am, at this point, I'm going to advise you that you are under arrest and you are resisting." Now please put the cane on the ground and put your hands up. Screw you. I didn't do anything. Those people that were blocking the line should be the ones under arrest. She threw another bottle of motor oil at them at this point. Ma'am, this is your final warning. Put the cane on the ground, hands up. Any further aggression from you and you will be tased. Oh, big bad cop gonna taser an old woman for trying to buy lottery tickets. I don't think so. I'm going home and you all should be ashamed for treating an old lady like this. She actually tried to get back into her car. But 3 officers moved towards her and one of them reached for her arm. Whack, whack. The cane went right up the side of the officer's head. Another officer tased her finally. Since she was elderly, the second AMS workers immediately came over and checked her after they got the cuffs on. Everyone stuck around to see what happened and to give their statements. As far as I could tell, no one was hurt except the officer that was hit by the cane. We drove back by the gas station after picking up groceries and the tow truck was just loading up her car. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. Okay, a little background on my town before we begin. I live in a suburban town in Indiana. Our town is about 45 Hispanic heritage and about 45 European heritage, with a tenth other. We're kind of poor, the majority of the town being lower middle class with some notable exceptions. That one housing project. What we do have is education. We test higher than almost any other school in the state. So we as a city get tens of millions of dollars that unusually get wasted on swimming pools and such. A little background on my first job. I worked at the Boys and Girls Club. For you non-Americans, it's like a mass babysitting operation, but there's homework help. My job was to take 7th hour to bike to the BGC. It counted as a service credit, even though I got paid. Swap into my uniform, wait, sign the elementary kids in, take their bags, and then when they're all there, go to the elementary room and keep them from getting bored and committing mutiny. I was 14 at the time, short for my age and a real squeaker, but formal as all get out, and eager to make money. I mean, help the community. Caste is edible macaroni, also known as the entitled mother. Endangered koala, also known as the entitled kid. Old Yeti, who is the manager, older, chubby, hairy gentleman that everyone loves. And finally, me. This story takes place during my first week of work. I was waiting for the buggers to come storming in when I glanced from my seat into the parking lot. The entryway was made of glass, and both rooms on either side have massive windows, so I could see the parking lot fairly easily from my seat. And this Ferrari, a literal Ferrari, in our sleepy town, pulls up into a parking spot. It's 2:30, I've just changed, and none of the elementary schools are out yet. As I stare in awe of the beauty of a car, in comes the entitled duo. Entitled mother. Hello, I'd like to drop my kid off. Me. Is he registered at this or the nearby town Boys and Girls Club? No. Turning back to my book, gesturing to the stack of papers on the counter, I tell her, fill out one of those, take the safety waiver. That's a lot of work. Do I have to? It is a page and a half. It's not that bad, and yes, you have to. The entitled mother takes the paper, mumbling something about not my job and jerk kids these days. She fills it out, takes her about 6 minutes. I put my book away and gotten my supplies out, ready for the first of 7 waves of kids. She sauntered over to my desk and handed me the papers. I went to make a copy to give to her, as well as to put the paper on the scanner so he's in our database. The entitled mother starts to walk off. Me, ma'am. You need your copy. She sighs and turns around to say, okay, just give it to me. Also, you didn't pay. It's $15 a year for our services. For you non-Americans, that's about the price of a golf pencil per day. Literally less expensive than the wheat in the free snack. I'm not paying that. Ma'am, we provide free access to a snack, computers, a large library, a gym, arts and crafts, and valuable friendships, all at no extra charge. My little angel should get it for free. He's a good kid academically. Me, internally. He's in 2nd grade. What the hell could this snot magnet have done? But out loud I say, if you register through any school in the hometown school system, they could give you a reduced price for academic excellence. Can't you do it? Just then, you hear the bell at the elementary school next door to the beach yet. I had about 150 seconds until hell's armies would come in and chaos would descend for the next 5 hours. Old Yeti also walks by and I breathe a sigh of relief. Me. Hey, Old Yeti. Can you help with this lovely lady over here? Translation. Can you give this witch the business end of a stern talking to? Entitled Mother. Just give it to me. Her kid runs off into the K2 room, not technically registered or signed in. Old Yeti. I would love to, but I have to help Chef Johnny make the cereal bars for snack. Translation. Sorry, no. I ain't got the patience for her. Ma'am, I am not an authority to give you anything for free. If you do not just hand over $15, I will have to call your kid to the front desk and have you two leave. The gates of hell open, loud, smelly, and wanting to play with their friends. Another employee stops them where the entryway meets the commons, saving me a headache, but I knew waves 2 and 3 were no more than 5 minutes away. Entitled Mother. Dear God, people in this town are so stupid, I just want it for free. Me, not completely done with it, but almost. Listen, ma'am, I'm going to spend the next 45 minutes signing kids in, then I have to deal with their nonsense for another 5 hours. I will almost certainly need to clean up at least one kid who didn't bother to use the restroom. I will likely have to clean a wire remote so it doesn't give some kid diphtheria or something. I'm ranting now. I have to deal with almost 200 immature kids for minimum wage. I will graciously add your little pile of trash. To that list, a prediction of that child that was correct. He was on thin ice for the entire time I was there. But I will not, and I repeat not, deal with an adult more immature than the children, so either pay the $15 or get you and your snot bag out of this establishment. I hear the lady that was keeping hell at bay mumble. Wow. The entitled mother, red with embarrassment, meekly reaching into her wallet, says, Here you go, sir. Thank you and have a lovely day. She handed me a $100 bill. Just that little extra work to give her change. Still angers me to this day. By this time, Wave 2 had arrived and she had gotten a ticket for parking in a handicapped spot. I didn't clear the entryway until after Wave 5, leaving me exhausted for the rest of my shift. The kid almost got banned several times for attempting to harm staff members, namely me. An old Yeti died just last month, and a memorial to his work now stands in the playground. Last year, a woman named Karen, who was 70 years old, reached out to me on Facebook. She asked if I could take care of her cats while she and her husband embarked on a campervan journey across Europe. Karen claimed to have become wealthy through bitcoins and didn't want to subject her newly rescued cats to the stress of constant travel. These feline companions had been in a cattery, under the care of someone else, for the past 5 months. When Karen delivered the cats to our farm, she made quite a fuss. Despite having sent her photos of the enclosure we had prepared for them, she vehemently refused to place the cats there during their initial adjustment period. According to her, everything was inadequate. Our dogs were too big, our house was too small, and there were no streetlights as we resided in a rural area. Throughout her visit, I maintained a composed demeanor, successfully settling the cats into their new home while soothing Karen's concerns. She had brought along an abundance of brand new cat accessories, such as tiny harnesses and peculiar outfits, which farm cats certainly don't wear, let alone tutus. She seemed slightly happier when we played along with her eccentricities. Eventually, her husband arrived in their extravagant camper van, resembling the tour bus of a famous rock band. Unexpectedly, Karen's emotional intensity increased dramatically. She began wailing and crying for her beloved feline babies, and her husband dutifully attended to her, wiping away tears with his hands and providing unwavering support as she partially collapsed onto our driveway. After some time, they departed, and the very next morning, they posted pictures of themselves sipping champagne on the beach. In the following months, we regularly shared updates with Karen, accompanied by adorable pictures of the cats. She consistently expressed gratitude for our care, but never reached out to inquire about their well-being, even during a natural disaster that affected our area. At one point, she had plans to visit the cats, but due to inclement weather, she drove past our remote town without stopping. Whenever we posted pictures of the cats on Facebook, she would always comment about her cats. Last month, I wrote to Karen informing her that the cats were thriving but occasionally felt a bit chilly and spent their days lounging on the couch near the fireplace. Her response consisted of instructions on how to keep them warmer and a reminder to ensure I was taking care of them. I replied with a non-committal response. Yesterday, I reached out to Karen, informing her that one of the cats had been critically injured after being sideswiped by a tractor. I had stayed up all night tirelessly trying to keep the cat alive, and she was currently at the veterinary clinic awaiting life-saving surgery. Suddenly, my phone started ringing incessantly. It was Kern's husband screaming at me through the line. He demanded to know why I persistently upset Karen with my messages and what I gained from doing so. I attempted to respond, but he wasn't interested in listening. He proceeded to hurl accusations, calling me a sadist, a bully, and an abuser. He asserted that Karen had entrusted us with the cats, so why was I disturbing her when she had moved on? I offered my apologies for any offense caused and tried to explain that I believed Karen would want to know since the cats were originally hers, and she cared deeply for them. However, he insisted that I delete Karen's number from my phone, never contact her again, and cease providing updates about the cats. I complied, apologizing once more for any inconvenience caused, and he abruptly hung up. 3 hours later, I received a message from Karen expressing her distress over the cat's critical condition. She couldn't bear the thought of the cat being ill, and she defended her husband's actions, claiming he was merely trying to shield her from unbearable pain. In response, I voiced my opinion that it was unkind of her husband to shout at me, especially during a pet crisis when I was simply trying to do the right thing by keeping her informed. However, she responded by calling me a selfish individual and promptly hung up before blocking me. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to inform Karen that since the cats were still legally registered under her name, she would be responsible for their expenses. As soon as we arrived at the veterinary clinic, the staff scanned the cat's microchip. We often bring in stray animals, so they know not every animal belongs to us, and it was her name that came up. I anticipate hearing from her when she receives the bank statement for the surgery costs. Meanwhile, the cat is recovering well, and we remain hopeful for her full recovery. She is an integral part of our family, and we certainly haven't moved on from our care and concern for her well-being. I'm a senior at a large state university. This happened in the first semester of my freshman year. I was selected for an honors type program that placed me in a co-ed dorm building with every other student in the program. As a dumb freshman, I rushed into a relationship with a freshman girl who lived right above me. We'll call her Megan. It was convenient for me to date someone who lived so close, but everyone else in our building hated Megan because she talked a lot, and almost exclusively about herself. She bragged often about being a fairly aggressive person. Somehow I overlooked that mile, wide red flag. Right after Thanksgiving break, at the end of an evening class, I got a call from my mom, who noticed some unusual activity on my checking account. Back then, I had no credit card, so this account debit card was my only access to my savings while I lived on campus. I rarely needed to buy anything during the semester, so I was puzzled to find that $104.29 had left my bank account over 2 weeks in the form of 6 Grubhub food orders. At this point, I trusted Megan, but I decided to ask her about the money right away. She denied any involvement and suggested that I cancel my debit card. After a really long phone call to the bank, I did just that. Next, I reached out to Grubhub customer service on Twitter. Hey, my card was stolen and used for food orders on these dates. Can I have the receipts? They sent me the first and last receipts, but they had to redact the personal info of the account holder. I say redact in quotes because they just used the Snapchat draw tool, and Megan's name was still clearly visible on both receipts. What's more, the most recent receipt was only 2 hours old. She was probably still eating when I chopped up my debit card. It's worth noting that she and I both had unlimited dining plans, paid for by our respective parents, and we lived 500 feet from the nearest dining hall. She didn't need to order food, and she definitely didn't need my money to do it. So I texted her again. I have the receipts from Grubhub. Are you sure you didn't make those orders? Her reply, screw you for suspecting me. Fairly aggressive, wouldn't you say? I hatched a plan to collect security camera footage of her picking up the order from that evening. However, by midnight, Megan arrived at my door in tears and confessed to everything, plus she admitted to being a serial shoplifter. Exhausted, I sent her away and decided to deal with everything in the morning. By the next day, everyone in our building seemed to know what was going down, probably because Megan had already begun broadcasting her version of the story. I sent Megan a breakup text and decided that the $104.29 was a loss. At least I escaped unscathed, right? Well, less than 2 days later, she entered my room when I wasn't looking. I was sitting at my desk when I noticed her standing silently behind me. "Give me my stuff. Where's my stuff?" I asked. "What stuff?" I did not know. She tore through the room, looking for something that she refused to identify. Just as quick as she came, she was gone, and I locked the door because obviously this wasn't over yet. Within a minute, she was back. She stood outside my door, knocking and demanding I let her back inside. The knocking quickly got more violent. She started shouting, "I know you're in there. Open the door." Mind that we lived in this building with students in our program who all know each other, and all of them could hear her. Pretty quickly, Megan was rattling the handle of my door. Next, she began throwing herself at it, shoulder first, trying to break it down. I live next door to my RA, but judging by the lack of any intervention, he was elsewhere. So I whipped out my phone and texted him to send backup. Meanwhile, I saw my heavy wooden door bending and buckling. I even heard it crack a bit. My RA was on duty in another building, so he sent 3 of his colleagues to de-escalate the situation. They brought Megan downstairs, where she revealed that the stuff she wanted was just the t-shirt and keychain that she gave me for my birthday. Whatever, I let her have those. I still just wanted this to be over. However, once I shared my story with the resident life staff, they filed university paperwork to place a no-contact order between me and Megan. They also recommended I contact the campus police, who then told me I should get my stolen money back in small claim court. I couldn't even get there without a car or money to pay for an Uber. At the request of the campus police, I also contacted the Title IX office at my school, sending them the story of everything you've read so far. They were interested, to say the least, although I didn't want any trouble. I just wanted a clean breakup and a fresh start, but a Title X representative informed me that they were bringing 3 misconduct charges against Megan: theft, threatening, violent behavior, and inciting an intervention by university staff. The representative asked me to serve as a witness in Megan's disciplinary hearing the next semester. I tentatively agreed, right before the representative set the hearing date for February 14th. Valentine's Day. I thought it was a joke, but they really did that. When the day of the hearing finally arrived, the no-contact order was still in effect, but a few of my friends had kept tabs on Megan. For starters, she failed all of her classes in the fall. Even worse, Megan kept telling a twisted version of the whole story to try and turn my friends against me. So when I found out that she had found a new boyfriend, it felt good to know that the V-Day disciplinary hearing ruined whatever evening plans they might made. I arrived alone at the disciplinary board office, unsure what to expect. The board consisted of grad students, and the hearing was expected to run into the night. Unlike me, Megan did not come alone. She brought both of her parents as character witnesses. That wasn't even a thing here. This wasn't a real courtroom, as you'll soon see. And that's not all. Megan's parents also paid a lawyer to defend her against the charges. The board knew that was unnecessary. In the name of fairness, the board members offered me pro bono legal representation, a junior economics major who we'll call Jimmy. Jimmy had already read my account of the events from the fall, and thanks to my screenshots of Grubhub receipts, he said there was an okay shot of the charges sticking. Then I told him something I'd kept secret for months. When Megan tried to break down my door and I whipped out my phone to text my RA, I also filmed the whole thing. Jimmy couldn't get enough of the video. There was Megan kicking and screaming and clearly trying to break into my dorm room. It was all the evidence I needed, and no one saw it coming. In the hearing, when the time came for me to make the case against McGann, Jimmy played the video on a big screen in front of everyone. The room went insane. In that instant, I realized that Megan really had convinced everyone I was the liar. In her version of the story, I gave her permission to buy food using my account. She told her parents that she'd asked me politely for her belongings, which I'd rudely hidden from her in my dorm room. In Megan's story, I was the sociopath trying to ruin her reputation. Before I unveiled the video, it was her word against mine. I still didn't want revenge, even after finding out that Megan tried to cheat on me. But when I saw her parents flipping out at the video, "Why didn't you tell us you did this?" and her lawyer raising hell. This evidence was not provided in pre-trial disclosure, and a board member standing over him. "Sir, this is not a court of law. Please return to your seat," and him shouting objection, and her replying, "We don't have objections. This isn't a court of law and Jimmy, my new best friend, just trying not to laugh out loud. That's when I realized how good revenge can feel when it's fair and deserved. The board found Megan responsible for all 3 charges. My side of the bench recommended the university terminate her housing contract and force her to pay restitution. Her side recommended only restitution and a reprimand. The board compromised. Her family paid back the money she stole, and Megan was forced to move to a different dorm building. This probably would have helped her anyway, because every student in our program's building knew everything she'd done and lied about. They wouldn't speak to her, and no one wanted to be her roommate. By the time she had to move buildings, she'd already failed all of her courses again. Having paid for her tuition, her unused dining plan, her lawyer, and her restitution, Megan's parents finally pulled her out of school after losing all this money. Last I heard, Megan returned as a part-time student, but I never saw her again because the no-contact order still stands. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.